we've gotten to the disgrace of Nimrod and the people who followed him and wanted to build a kingdom for their own self. And we find in chapter 11 of Genesis, we find man's desire. Man's desire. Now, we can go back over all the rules of Bible study. We will not do that tonight. But we will say that God always has a plan. God always had a purpose. But God has always had a problem. That problem has always been man. But God has always made provision. And so we're going to look at the God provision after the despicable debauchery of man in chapter 11. But we saw man's desire, and they said, "Go to, let us build a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. Let us make a name, and lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." And so here they are in the land of Shinar, which is in the kingdom of Nimrod, and they have decided or desired a few things. Number one, they desired to build a work of their own will. They built a city for themselves. You'll see that. Let us build a city. They wanted a place built upon their own will. And that is what men have a tendency of doing. I want to build my own kingdom where I am king and where I have my own city where I rule and reign and live. This is my country, my land. This is mine, and I will do what I want to do here. I'll make the rules. Is that not how people do it? Is that not how we do it in our own homes many a times? Well, say it's my house. I'll tell people what they can do in my house. And I'm not debating whether you ought to have some rules and stuff in your house. You ought to. I am trying to say our tendency is to say they're mine instead of I want to do what the Lord would have me to do. And we find that Nimrod, who had went about and to build his own kingdom, in the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and we found in verse number 10 of chapter 10, and so here he was a mighty hunter before the Lord, and building his kingdom, and here they are in Shinar, and they're building a city. They're building a work for their own will. They're doing this for themselves, for their own glory. And then they want to build a wonder to worship in their own will. A wonder to worship in their own will. We will find that they built in this place, they were building a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. Now some people want to say that they were building let's say a temple or something to that effect. I don't know what it was. It was some kind of tower. We do know that in Babylon, that the king, Nebuchadnezzar, built a statue in the middle of the city. It was something that was so big that everybody could see it from every place around. They were building something so that everybody could say, look at there at the city which they built and the work that they did. They wanted somebody to worship their works. So they built a wonder so that people could worship their works. And they did it because they wanted to be known. They wanted everybody to remember them. They wanted that. They had this want in their heart. Here's what it says. And let us make us a name. A lot of people. I am not downing the president. But he did not call them just a motel. He called them Trump Tower. He wanted a name for himself. He wanted everybody to know, hey, the Trumps have trumped everything. Let me say, I'm not, like I said, I'm not putting down the president. I'm just telling you that's how people have a tendency of doing, making it. They name their lands after themselves, and they think that they're going to be remembered because of this, that there's somebody that's done something. Did you know that's the difference, the way Jesus did things? He said, don't go tell people. Don't go tell everybody. Why? He was not out to make a name for himself. He did not need man to testify of man because he knew what was in man, according to John chapter 2. He wasn't looking for people to just look at how miraculous and the wonderful work that he did. He was wanting them to look away unto the Father. Because he said, I come to do the will of the Father. I do always thy will. No other will that he had. He didn't want to do a work of his own will. He did not want to make wonders for his own worship. He could have made himself king. He had the power. But instead he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. He could have made a name for himself. But he was numbered with the transgressors instead. He was ridiculed and mocked. And they made a name for him when they crucified him and put him to death. And they would not have done it if they'd known. Oh, if they'd have known the king, they would have not crucified the Lord of glory. If they'd have known that they were going to lose everything because everybody looked away unto Jesus. But he told them, he said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. I mean, all of the world has looked away unto Jesus. Not every individual, but people from every tribe, every kindred have looked away unto him and been saved, born again. Man's desire was to build a work of their own will, to build a wonder, to worship their works, and to give world recognition, build a name for themselves. So we find man's desire, we find God's division. And as God had looked and saw what was going on there, he came down to see the city and the tower which men had builded, or which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they do, or begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence, from the face of the earth, and they left off to build the city. You'll notice what did they say they didn't want to do? They did not want to be scattered abroad upon the face of the earth. But God says, all I got to do is touch your tongue, and it'll scatter you abroad. When you got different interests, you talk about different things, you think about different things, and you don't speak the same speech, you don't speak the same language anymore, guess what happens? There's no reason to hang out together if you don't have anything in common. It did not take long for the drunkards to not hang out with me when I did not have anything in common with the drunkards. There was no need for me to be with them, and there was no need for them to be with me. Did not have the same things in common. Even people I know that I like and I enjoy, and we can talk about things that I know about. After a little while, and I bring the conversation around to something that's important like the Lord, and all of a sudden, we do not build a great friendship of closeness. And why is that? Because we do not have things in common. A different speech. What do you talk about? God divided their language, divided their speech, and divided their nation. And they couldn't do what they wanted to do. All it took was one touch of the tongue, and it caused division. The tongue's a little member and boasts its great things. Don't think that the tongue can't mess up a whole lot of stuff. All it takes is one word, and it'll destroy friends. Is that not what he says? Does he not say a talebearer divides chief friends, separate chief friends? Does he not say that that stuff happens? Those that go around just talking, their tongue's a little thing. What did God touch? He touched their tongue. And it divided their country. God's division. Therefore the name shall be called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence the Lord scattered them abroad upon the face of all the earth. So we find man's desire, man's the problem. God had a plan that he built a place for his glory and his honor, a world for his glory and his honor, a kingdom for him. Man's desire was man build a kingdom for himself. God, though, had made provision. In two sides of God's provision, we find God in his division. He broke up their stuff so he could build up his kingdom. And you will find, starting in verse number 27, well actually you can find starting in verse number 10, then these are the generations of Shem. Throughout all this, God has a people who are calling upon his name. You'll find that back in chapter 5, or chapter 4, excuse me, in verse number 26. There said, to him was also, there was born a son, and they called his name Enos, and people began to call upon the name of the Lord. Then we find in chapter 8, after that Shem and Japheth went in backwards and covered their dad's nakedness and all that, and God was going through that Shem to build a name for himself. And even though they were not a perfect people, and you can find out that they were not a perfect people, but God was going through this people because he had a plan. And his plan was to call out a people for his name. So here we find the children of Shem, and we find that generation, and we find it goes all the way down, and we find that Nahor lived 25 years and begat Terah, verse number 24. Nahor lived after he begat Terah 119 years and begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Now these are the generations of Terah. And so here's Terah, and we start looking at this, and he has a son named Abram. And Abram and Nahor took of them wives, and Abram's wife was Sarai, and Nahor's wife was Milcah, and Sarah was barren. All this happened because God has a determination. In God's provision, God caused division on one side, Because he had a determination on another side. As long as man has their own kingdom and their own kingdom's going good, they will never look away unto Jesus. You say, oh no, everything was perfect in my life. Everything was great in my life, and I decided I needed Jesus anyway. That's not true. Something was stirring in your heart that said there's unrest. He did not say, come unto me, all you that are resting. He said, come unto me, all you that are laboring or heavy laden, and I will give you rest. If you never found unrest in your soul, you've never truly come to Jesus. You may have added Jesus to your addition to your other gods and into your life, but you've never come to Him as His all-sufficiency and never gotten the rest that He has for you. But God has to make division in order to accomplish His own determination. So through all this, here's the people of Shem, and they're coming along, bearing children. And as they are, they're not living perfect. Some of them were living in the kingdom of Nimrod. Some of them were, but something inside of them was still had a desire to get out of it. You say, how do you know they had a desire to get out of it? Because I read my Bible. Here's what it says. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarah his daughter-in-law, and his son Abram's wife, and they went forth them from Ur the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan, and they came unto Haran and dwelt there. That was before God told Abram to get out of his father's house. This man says, I got to get out of what I'm in right now already. There is unrest where I'm at. I need to take my family and move to another place. Start over. For some reason, there was some unrest in the heart of Terah. So, we find God's determination from the family of grace, the Shemites. We find the history of grace. And though they've drifted, there's still, God still had His plan. He still had His purpose. He still had all this going on. And you'll find that a man, Terah, decides, I'm leaving my land. He knew there was a need for a new life. But you'll find that he was not willing to go all the way and do it God's way. He just said, I've got to get out of here. I'm going somewhere. And let me say, he was going to the right land. He said, I'm headed for Canaan. That's where he took his son and said, we're going to Canaan. Now, I read that because he said, to go into the land of Canaan. But he didn't make it. You say, why? Because he said, I found a place in Haran, and I'm happy here. And I just want us to learn a little lesson from that. There's many of people out there that says, I want to go to a place where there's peace, there's rest, where God's working at, where God's going to do something. But they'll never get there on their own. They will find a dwelling place that is short thereof, and they will die there. That's what the Bible tells us. That he did this. He got there to Haran, and he said they dwelt in Haran. And then the Bible tells us, as they dwelt in Haran, and the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died, not getting where he wanted to go, because he became content halfway home. He was supposed to be going to Canaan. That's where he said he was going. He gets to Haran and says, we're going to settle in here. I'm close enough. and getting away from it all, that I'm happy here, and I'll make my dwelling here. And he died. And there are many people that die in religion and never know Christ. There's many people that say, I want to separate myself from Nimrod's kingdom and from that life, but never come to Christ. There's many a person who went to AA or NA or GA or one of those anonymous places and gotten the help and gotten their deliverance from whatever that sin might be that they're caught up in, and said, I need to get away because this thing's got me bound up and in bondage. This sin, this lifestyle. And yet they're going to get part way away. They never get as far away as they need to get. They're like Lot, who said there's a little city, it's just too far to get too far away. There's a little city, just let us go that far. Just let us get away from this place you want to destroy. There's some that just look back, like Lot's wife did, and they turn into a pillar of salt. Are you seeing what happens? They don't always get all the way away, even though they want to get away. And if you're going to do it in your own way, you never get far enough away. Now we find at that point in time, Terah dies. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto the land that I will show thee. Everything that has to do with your daddy's life, you're to leave. Everything that has to do with your dad's servants, your dad's style, everything about that, leave it behind. I want you to follow me. Not to Canaan, but to the land I'll show you. And he went out, knowing not whither he went, because he was looking for a city that had a builder and maker who was God. Not a city that he could build, not a city that he could make, not this great kingdom which I've done, but the city whose builder and maker was God. He said, I'm going to go with God. We find God's calling. We find that there's a calling of a man in chapter 12, verse 1. There's a calling of a man. And then we find there's a charging for a mission. The calling of a man was, get thee out of thy country, from thy kindred, and thy father's house, and the land I will show thee. Then we find there's a charging for a mission. And I will make thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great. And thou shalt be a blessing, and I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Let me say this. When God charges you for a mission, He'll empower you to accomplish the mission. He'll inform you what you need to know about the mission. He did not inform him where he was going, but he informed him what he was going to be doing. Do you realize that God doesn't have to inform you about every detail of where you're going to go, but He will inform you what He wants you to do? I find that right here. He says, first of all, leave this to cleave to this. Follow me. Follow me. He says, here's what I'll do. I will bless them that bless you, curse them that curse you. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. He said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a name for me by you. Therefore making a name for you because of me. Does that make sense? God's making a name for himself by Abraham. So therefore he's making a name for Abraham, not for Abraham, but for God. See, God said, I'll do it. They wanted to make a name for themselves. They did not want to be divided. God said, you are going to have to divide yourself away from everything else, and I will make you a great nation. I'll do something through you that you'll never know how I did it. You'll never believe it. You'll never understand it. It's going to be bigger than what you can comprehend. I'll tell you a story. There's a lady who had been 83 years old the other day. Tuesday, been July 2nd, right? Oh, when I got my phone call the other day, it was Tuesday?
Yes.
July 2nd. Lady would have been 83 years old, died 29 years ago. Name was Jean Druitt. Jean Druitt. She was married to a man by the name of Tommy Druitt. She was a songwriter. Wrote a song. Wrote a bunch of songs, but wrote one, Without the Blood, I've never known my Savior. Without the blood, I'd be lost eternally. I heard that song from a missionary some years ago, and I wept. And I want to learn that song. And one of the first songs I learned after I picked up a guitar again and started strumming on the guitar was one of the first songs I learned. And I started singing. A few years back, right after I moved to Indiana, I was sitting in my living room and recorded it and put it on Facebook, or not Facebook, but on YouTube. I get a phone call July 2nd from a lady in Ardmore, Alabama. And here she is, calls me up and says, I answered the phone, and I don't normally answer the phone when it's a number I don't know, but I answered the phone this time. And she says, are you the preacher? I said, I am a preacher, yes ma'am. I'm pastor of Victorious Life Baptist Church here in Shelbyville. She said, oh, you're the singer, aren't you? That's very seldom anybody ever calls me a singer. Most people think I might be a butcher. But she said, I said, well, that goes without I don't know if I am or not. I've sung a few songs or two. She said, I've written a few and sung a few. She said, well, there's a song I'm looking for the words and music for that you sing. I said, there is. She said, it's called Without the Blood. And she said, it's by, written by Jean Druitt, I think he said on you. And I said, yes. And she said, but I can't get a hold of anybody who's got the words and music. I don't know how to. And I said, well, you're not going to get a hold of Miss Druitt. She's in the heaven. And I said, but I know her husband and her son. And I might be able to get a hold of them. So I started trying to phone them. So I called Brother Tommy, the number I have for Brother Tommy. It's disconnected. I go on Facebook to figure out if I can get a hold of Sean, and I was going to send him a message. I go to his Facebook page, and the first thing I see, Mom would have been 83 years old today. And I'm thinking, wow. The verse that came to my mind out of Hebrews is,